Possum up a simmon tree, raccoon on the ground. Raccoon said to the old possum, shake him Simmons down. And I said, little Liza Jane, ooh.
All right, we're back up here at camp, and we're going to do the Springpole Snare and the simple snare. We've had a lot of requests for it, and a lot of people asking about it, sending messages, so we're just going to go for it. We went over this in our basic trapping class, but I'm going to do a little more in depth. Pretty simple little primitive trap. It's actually probably the one primitive trap that I've had the most experience with, just because it's kind of in a gray area as far as legality here where I'm at, because you can use snares and you can use wire snares. So this is just a very, very simple wire snare, but you could make it with natural cordage, and the spring pole assist part of it would definitely lend itself well for natural cordage, as getting, you catch animal up and off the ground where it wouldn't chew through your cordage if you're going to use, nettles or poplar bark or something like that. So we'll get in here and get after it, and I'll show you how to make this simple snare set. All right, so here's some poplar bark cordage I made up, and if you were going to do a truly primitive trap, for around here, poplar would probably be my first choice. And to make the snare, probably what I would do, my favorite knot, just do a figure 8, because it'll lay pretty flat. Then you can run back through. That would give you your snare loop, and of course the rest of the construction is pretty simple. It doesn't really matter what media you're using to make your snare. The mechanics are all going to be the same, but I did want to just go over that real quick with a poplar bark. That way you kind of have an idea of what it would look like, how it would operate through there. Zoom, snare it up. Of course your spring pole would snatch it up off the ground. That would keep your rabbit, squirrel, what have you, from chewing back through your cordage. So that's just a look at the poplar bark. All right, so this is the branch I chose. I chose it for its angle. The branch is coming off of the main branch, and this is going to be our anchor point. And I like to make these pretty long depending on what kind of terrain I'm anchoring into. And I also like on the anchor end to leave a little stop also. That way I'm driving in the ground and kind of give it that turn, because this is going to make you or break you. This is what holds your whole spring pole down and keeps the mechanism from just flying open. So this is really probably the most important part of the trap, in my opinion. All right, so first thing I'm going to do here is go ahead and get my main trigger anchor cleaned up a little bit. The things about primitive traps, you're always tinkering with them to get them exactly right. And I'm going to go ahead and clean this one off. And I'm going to do this one the same way I did the anchor. Leave a little bit of a tag. Then I think the kind of length, that ought to be enough. And we may have to adjust this even depending on how hard the ground is. That should definitely be enough to hold over the sapling I've chosen. So remember, always cut away from yourself. See, you could even split that elm off. You've seen a few of our other videos. That's complete snare set in one tree. There's your cordage you could spin up. But that's another video. Okay, so now I'm going to sharpen the end of my anchor up. Come in here and flatten this off just a little bit, because that is where our snare pole is going to come in and anchor into that. Okay, that's one side done, with the exception of maybe a little fine tuning. All right, the next piece is going to be our trigger, and this is just above where we cut it. You don't necessarily have to have this stick here, but I like to have it on there. And again, I'm going to come up, go ahead and clean this off. That guy out of here. I really only need this piece, so I'm going to get this off. The reason I like to leave this on is this is where you're going to attach as far as to your spring pole itself, and you can get by with just, you know, a straight stick, but if you put your attachment loop below this, it gives you another just chance of success, whereas there's a possibility without it, if the animal struggled much, this would slip out. But that definitely, little piece right there, it keeps it from sliding out your snare or your spring loop. I'm going to work on this a little bit more. Alright, so this is your main two pieces, this being your anchor, this being your trigger. Your anchor is going to go into the ground. Your snare will go on the trigger piece, as well as the string going to your spring pole will be on there, and they will interlock and rest just like that. You want just the right amount of give, because this is the whole release mechanism that's going to make your snare work. Alright, chosen this sapling. It ought to have more than enough spring to lift a rabbit, squirrel, probably even a groundhog off the ground, because that would be what you were targeting around here. But we're just going to have it pulled down, have our cordage attached at a good anchor point. Then of course that'll go to our trigger, which will come in underneath our anchor. So that's kind of the whole mechanism of it. And then once it's released, away it goes and your animal's up off the ground, which is very important if you're using natural cordage. All right, so what I carry in my bag, I've got a little bit of 20 gauge copper wire, which is handy for so much stuff. And that's what we're going to use to make our snare out of. So you don't need a whole lot of that. This stuff can be cut with a knife, or if you have your Leatherman or multi-purpose tool with you, it's just that easy to cut. It doesn't rust. This may be hard to see, but what I like to do when I make my snares, I'll twist my eye up for my snare. I like to have several passes. And right before the end, you'll see a lot of people make these, I call them scruff catches. Catch the scruff of the neck. And you can see that, the little L. What I do is go kind of one up that. I make a T. I just double it back, give it a little spin, and you can even cut this and kind of make like almost a treble hook if you have your multi-tool on you. But you can see that will, with any luck, be in the top of your snare, and of course it folds down easy, not much give, you know, resistance to it. It'll be out of your way, it won't affect your snare locking up. But it might give you an extra opportunity where if the animal is going to slide through, if your hole wasn't just right, and that's probably the most frustrating part of doing these snares. Especially, I've had some experience snaring squirrels, and they will drive you insane. I could snare 10 coyotes before I could snare one squirrel. But that little scruff catch right there, pull your other through. That's kind of what it's going to look like riding in there. I'll give you a side view of that so you can see. Theory being comes through, catches on his hide, and you got him. This copper wire, it's great stuff because it never will rust on you. Even if it gets wet in your bag, you don't have to worry about it too much. All right, next step. My trigger. You don't really know exactly, you know, about how deep you're going to be set in. So I like to give it about, you know, a good 6, maybe 8 inches. I'll double or triple wrap around here depending on what I have. Spin that up nice and tight. Again, you know, you don't have to have a lot of tools, and it would be the same thing. You would just loop around. If you were using natural cordage, you would have another choker loop of some sort on your trigger stick. But that's how I like to make mine look. Again, you know, 10 guys show you how to do it, they're going to do it 10 different ways, but that's what mine looks like. Trail right here, that's where we're going to set our snare. You have all these little honeysuckles and thorns coming in around, kind of fences it in for us. So I'm going to find a good spot, put my anchor, and hopefully this thing will drive in and we'll have a good distance and not have to redo it. But again, I've got my rest for my trigger, and then I've got my ground anchor on the bottom to give it a little more holding power, because you are holding the whole sapling over with this piece here. Use my caveman hammer. You can get these any creek or field, you know, they're pretty much available anywhere, real cheap. Also good for batoning your knife with, not really. All right, of course, everybody carries paracord everywhere. I've got a nice length of paracord. What I'm gonna do with my paracord, I'm just gonna tie a little figure 8 on the end here. Run my cord back through. Gives me a bit of a choker. You can tie any good choking knot really you want on that. I like to get in there good and flat. And now you can see what I'm talking about as far as the secondary stop. You know, I could hang anything off that. So that's kind of what my triggers look like. Your triggers may not look the same. That's what I've got experience with myself in the field. Okay, so your trigger setup's there. Now this other end, this is the end that's going to go to your engine or to your sapling or spring pole. It's going to do the lifting. So we'll do pretty much the same thing. And with any primitive trap, it's a whole lot of tinkering around, because, you know, there's no factory setting on this thing. You just got to make it work with what you have. And every setup's going to be a little bit different depending on materials and location. All right, you see, I put my anchor above this Y branch, and for the same reason, if I just had it on a regular branch, I think it increases your odds of, when it does spring, slipping all the way off. So this kind of acts as a brake as it pulls up. It makes it a little bit more secure rather than just being on a single branch. So that's just a little something to think about when you're out setting them. Okay, so hopefully this works. Pull down, we engage here. Like I said, it may take some tinkering. May take some tinkering. Yeah, I like that, because the animal itself is going to move through and actually disengage this trigger. So that really, I would be happy with that, especially for a rabbit. You've got it here on this trail, you got your trigger up, and all you're doing is waiting for him to come by either direction, push off of your trigger, and up he goes. All right, so Mr. Rabbit, he comes hop, 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 hopping along, comes through the snare, he gets in the snare, boom. He goes down the trail, he's jerked up and out of the way. That gets him out of the way of any ground predators. Right now it's hanging about 4 foot off the ground. Probably a fox or coyote could still jump up and get it. But, you know, it's just the chances you take. Check your traps pretty regular. You should be good. That's about all there is to it, really. Just basically 2 sticks, a little string, and a young tree. So that's the basics of it. No black magic, no smoke, no mirrors. Pretty easy to do. 2 sticks, a little bit of wire, some paracord. If you don't have that, just bark cordage or whatever you do happen to have. We're going to do a few more traps in the next coming weeks. Kind of use the end of Kentucky trapping season, see what we can't get live on video. I appreciate you guys wanting to know a little bit more and asking questions and giving us ideas. So just hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and we'll try to keep doing what we do. Thanks.
Ooh, she died on the train where the possum got to shaking. Persimmons began to fall.